So let's create here an Angular application that will allow us to play around with movies and actors, right? So we're going to have a list of actors and a list of movies, right? And there'll be a many-to-many relationship between movies and actors. And let's explore different ways that we can capture that, right? We can capture it using arrays of objects, arrays of references, right? Or foreign keys referring to primary keys. There's different ways that MongoDB would allow you to capture these relationships between multiple entities, right? A many-to-many relationship, right? So let's do first the actors, right? Let's first create the base application. So let's load all the scripts that we need. Let's look up Angular. Here's that's Angular right there. Let's grab the router. Let's see, script, source, go back up, JS, Angular, router. There it is. Oops, no, that one is the router, one is not the router. That one. Right? Yeah, okay. Okay, and let's see. Let's also load let's load Bootstrap. So there's Bootstrap, and this is a style sheet. Very good. Okay. All right. Let's declare this ng app movies. All right. Let's declare this a container, and this is h1 movie app. And let's put the ng view here to as a placeholder where we're going to inject everything in there. Okay. Let's create the simplest of Angular applications. There's app.js. Very good. And load and implement it right here in app.js. So app.js, where we implement our very simple Angular application called movies. Dot module, and we call it, what is it? Movies, right? And the only dependency right now is ng route. All right, let's see. Let's navigate to this. This is in lectures, lecture Wednesdays 2. There we go. Movie app. Very good. First, let's be able to create actors. Okay. Let's see. Let's create a configuration where right here. Also, we can just do the configuration right here. Right. We're going to say config, and the configuration. Oops. We're going to implement it in a function called configuration, and we're just going to do just a couple of routing between a list of movies and a list of actors, right? And we're going to be able to create references between the two, right? So route provider, and route provider. If I see actor. I'm going to render the templates URL, templates, and then this will be actor list dot view dot client dot html. Okay, and if I go to movies. Then I would like to be able to see the following template, and this will be templates, and this will be movie list dot view dot client dot html. Yes. All right. So for now, let's create these two. Oh, and otherwise, right? If I don't know what you're saying, then I'm just going to redirect you to actor. All right, that's where you're going to get started. All right, so let's create those two templates. let's go to templates, and in here let's create the first HTML actor list dot view dot client dot HTML is going to have H2 will have actors, right? And this will be movies, right? Oops, movie. And this will be movie. And the index page, you can have a link that says href, go to actors, or go to movies, right? So this could be movies. There we go. So let's refresh this, and if we click on, it's not quite working. Oh, I might hash bang. So the new version of Angular, or the newest version of Angular, forces us to use hashbang. Hashbangs is a sort of pseudo standard by Google. That what happens is that so Google, when it searches pages, right, it does indexing, right? So it has spiders that go and visit all the pages in the world, well, most of them, and it parses it, and then it creates an index of that page. The problem with new pages is that the pages that are being visited are now becoming more and more dynamic. So when they visit your page, dynamic page, the only thing they see is just empty templates, right? There's no actual content, right? Because the content is all dynamically generated, right? They would have to download the JavaScript, run the code, right, and see what the content would be if they visited, right? So search engines are having a problem trying to index content that is all dynamic, right? They've created this standard with a hashbang to tell the spider when it visits that, hey, this is a dynamic page. Okay, they can't rely on just on the hash, because the hash is a legitimate, right? It's a legitimate symbol that has a very specific meaning, right? It used to mean the same page but a different section down below, right? So I would get the same page, the same content. The browser would navigate down. The spider wouldn't, right? The spider doesn't care. It would just download the content and interpret it. Yes? So what browsers are now, what Google created is that hashbang gives it a clue that says, hey, this is dynamic. There's a separate static page that you can index. Right? Not this one. There's some other static page that you can go and look at it, right? You can pass these arguments, these arguments that are after the hashbang, and it will generate content statically so that you can index that instead. Okay? Obviously, you would need to support that, right? We're not supporting it here. We just have the static version of these things, right? Anyway, it's a Google standard that is being adopted by other search engines as well. Okay, but that's where it comes from. So there, we can navigate between the two. Everybody good? All right. So let's really quick. Let's create actors. So let's see. Let's create here UL class lists group. In the very first one, we'll put an input field. And the first line item, we'll put a list group item, and we'll put a line item, an input field here. Input class form control. There we go. Let's see. So in actors, there we go. So we're going to use that to be able to create new actors. Let's put a plus sign at the end of this. So we'll do a span class glyphicon. And we'll put a plus here at the end, plus, and let's pull this to the right so that it's at the far right. Let's move that plus sign just a little bit to the top so that It's in the same location of that input field. So let's use maybe a style here. And I would never want to see style actually used in input in fields, right? This should live always in a CSS, right? But for brevity, I'm going to put it in here. So I'm going to change the position to be relative. I'm going to move it just a little bit to the top, minus 15 pixels above, and move it to the right, 10 pixels over, or maybe left. No, right. Yes, my other left. Yeah, almost there. Let's move it a little bit further, 25 pixels. There. Okay, so now it looks like that plus sign is part of the input field, right? So when I click on it, I'm going to be able to create actors. Everybody good? All right. And the list of actors is going to be down here. This is going to be also another list item, and I'm just going to display the actor and then the name of the actor. Okay, and I'm going to iterate over this, ng repeat of actor in model dot actors. Okay, we don't have that yet. So for now, I'm going to just display this at the bottom, just for debugging purposes. All right, great. So so this is what we want to do is that when we click on this, ng click, we want to notify the controller that we want to create a new actor, and we're going to pass it a model.actor object that is declared up here. Right, so we'll say ng model. This will be model.actor.name. Okay? Very good. Okay, so we don't have a controller, so let's create a controller real quick. So let's see. We're going to say that this list is going to have the following controller. It'll be the actor controller, right? And we'll implement it in a directory called controllers, and the controller, we're going to create a JavaScript in there real quick. Call actor dot controller dot client dot JS. All right, so in here we're going to have, go away. Function, we'll have the controller here, Angular. Module is, what is it? Movies? Is it movies? Movies, and we'll create a controller here. And the name will be actor controller, implemented in a function with the same name. Let's see, let's create a model which will point to this. And right now, we have an event handler for creating an actor that is implemented in the same function of the same name down here, which receives the actor object. And right now, we'll just say console log actor, just to see that this is working. We'll need to load that controller. Let's load the controller. Let's put the controller here. Script source. This is in controllers, and this is actor controller. Let's see, we have any errors? Oh, I didn't. That's right. Movies is not available. Module movies. Did I? Let's see. App.js. What did I call it? Oh, right. Okay. But wait a minute. Movies. Module movies. And this is movies, right? Module movies. Did I call it right? Yes. Oh, here? Okay, thank you. Controller as model. Is that it? Let's see. No, still complaining. Active controller is not registered. Am I loading active controller? I thought I was. Active controller. Actor. Did I spell this right? Actor controller. Actor controller. Did I load it?
You don't have any idea.
Oh, no, I do have. Oh, maybe, wait. Okay, the order, right? I needed to load first the declaration first. Okay. So if I load this and I say plus, right, there it is. So it is reaching the place, right? Very good. Okay, so let's this needs to go to a service. So let's create the service real quick. Right, the controller wants to have a service here, right, to talk to the server. This is actor service. So really, what we want here is actor service dot create actor and pass it the actor. The service will return with a promise, right? And here here's the actor that we just created, right? Which we don't really care for. We're just perhaps we can. We don't need it for anything, right? We're only just going to get a response back, right, saying yes, we created it. All right. All right. So let's create that service. Create that service. So here's a service, and new services, and new JavaScript. So this is actor.service.client.js, right? And let's create a service here. So function, and this is Angular module movies, and let's create a service here, service, and the name is actor service implemented in a function of the same name, right? This is going to use the HTTP service, right, to make calls to the server. So let's declare the functions here. Is create actor implemented in a function of the same name. Right, that's going to receive the actor object and is going to return the promise that after I reach the server, I will respond with a promise. Right. So here the URL that I'm going to use is I'm going to namespace it. I'm going to namespace it so that if I need to do this again on Friday, I'm not going to bump with my code here. So I'm going to say API, and I'll say that this is in the lectures on Wednesdays, right? And this is we're talking about Mongo, and this is movies. Okay, so that's my namespace. Yes. Typically, I would not do that, right? Really, what I want here is at the end of this is the name of the entity that I'm manipulating, right? I am either creating, deleting, finding, removing, whatever, right? Reading, looking, searching, and I'm going to pass the actor object. This is going to come back with a promise, which I am going to receive a response from the server, and which contains metadata about the response from the server, right? Of which the actual data is inside of an attribute called data. Yes? So I'm going to unwrap that, and that's what I'm going to return. I'm going to return response.data. Right? That's where the actual data that comes from the server comes in, right? All right. So if I refresh this, oops, actor service. Okay, it's referencing actor service, but we never loaded the service in index. So let's do that. In index, let's load that service, and this is services, the actor service. There it is. So if I try to add a server, it's going to say, okay, I sent this to the server, but nobody on the server was listening on this. So let's do that. Well, I guess I did start working on that. Let's see, Mongo 2. No, let's have that here. Let's create here a directory, movies, and in here put the JavaScript app.js. So here's where we're going to be listening for this on the server side, right? On a separate on a separate module, Node.js module, we'll say module that exports function. This is going to receive the instance of express, so we can listen in from that query. But really, where we want to put this is in the service, right? The service is going to be listening to this. So I'm going to require the service inside of a directory called services, which doesn't exist yet. And in here, I'm going to have an actor dot service dot server, right? And this is where I'm going to be listening in for that incoming post, right? So that's going to live under a directory called services, and that's where I'm going to put my services in there, right? So let's put in there actor.service.server.js, right? So this is going to be a separate module, exports, right? That receives the incoming request, right? And the request comes from here, right? This is the URL that we want to listen to, right? This is the URL that we want to listen to as a post, right? Which is going to call create actor on the server side, right? And finally, and the actor itself is going to be in the request and response here, right? So it's going to say console log. Hopefully, the actor will be in the request body. Yes, right? All right. So we have this app. We need to load it from the server. Let's load it from the server down here, so that it runs on the server. Require. It's under lectures on Wednesdays. Mongo. Wait, Mongo? Is that what I called it? Yeah, Mongo. Movies. App.js. There it is. And I'm going to pass it app. Let's restart the server. See if we broke something. Okay, it looks like we didn't break anything. Let's try this again. So if we post, there it is. So it's reaching the server, right? See that? It's reaching the server. So the server is receiving our post. All right, so let's store it in a database, right? Let's store it in a database. So to do that, in the service is going to load a model, right? That is going to be the one who actually does the storing of the database. Now notice that I'm layering this, right? And we've been doing this for the last month or so, right? But I just want to go over a little bit. What is the role of each one of these, right? So we have the user here, right, interacting with the template, right, and then in the template sending events to the controller, right, the controller sending events to a client service, right, and then the client service making a call over the wire using HTTP to the server service. Right? And then the server service is going to be using a model, right, on the server. And the server model is going to be using Mongoose down here that actually talks to the database. Yes? Right? Why is it so many layers? Right? Notice that the HTML, the role of the HTML is to render something for the end user. Right? It deals with styles, CSS, HTML, right? All the layout of the page. The controller has absolutely no idea of these concepts, and they shouldn't know, right? It has no idea of the DOM. It has no idea of styling, how it looks, right? Its only responsibility is to intercept events from the user as they click, right? And convert those into actions. It doesn't do the actions. It's not its responsibility. Its responsibility is to deal with the native events that the user generates, right? So we have all these event handlers. It knows how to delegate to others to handle and actually perform those actions. Yes? That's why it uses the service. The service, notice that the server has no idea of the users, right? Events or anything like that, right? The only thing that it knows is that I am manipulating data, right? It's the interface between two worlds, right? Between this object world on the browser and the HTTP world outside of the browser. It's the boundary between everything that executes on the client, on the browser, right, and the outside world, HTTP world. Yes, it's a conversion layer. Notice that the service running on the server is the opposite, right? It's the same thing. It's a layer, right? It's a boundary layer between the HTTP world and the object world, right? That runs on the server, right? So you have all these boundaries, right? This is the user boundary, right? This is the logic boundary. This is the data boundary, right? And the actions that are being executed, right? And then notice that after that we have a data modeling layer here, right? That has no idea where the actions come from, right? Notice that the actions are coming from HTTP, but might as well come from the console, right? Or from a batch system that periodically it does updates, right? It doesn't really care from where it comes from, right? This is just one of many ways that we could be accessing the model to the database. Make sense? Right? Now underneath, notice that underneath it's using NoSQL. Yes, it's using NoSQL, but it doesn't really care who it is who's using that, right? Because that layer is the model layer abstracts that, right? It doesn't. So you could swap it for a relational database, and the service layer would still work, right? And that's what we mean by that's the capability of being able to swap between these different layers. Gives you great flexibility on implementing the different layers independent of each other, right? That these are mutually separated from one another, right? So that's what why so many layers, right? Also, it gives once you have this mental model, right, you can easily just jump around and between where things are happening and where things are occurring, right? And so anyway, so we're down here at the service layer. Yes.
Can you mention one more time how many components we need to change if you did do the swap of database type in relation to relational to now?
So you would have to the service, right? Everything here would be unaffected, right?
Yep.
The model over here would be the only one who knows that it needs to use the mongoose,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
It's the only one who has a dependency with whatever underlying plugin you're using to talk to the native database, right?
Okay.
You could create an additional layer, right? An additional layer that only abstracts mongoose, right? And the top one uses your plugin, right? That you can then swap whatever database you want to use, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Data access objects do this. Yes.
That's not exactly true what we're doing though, because you're probably passing the mongoose model instance all the way back to views, and so if you switch out from mongoose to something else,
Like for the
model will end up being different.
like the primary key and
No, like so. At least the way I did it is your services. They call mongoose. They get back an instance of a mongoose model, right? That they return back as JSON, right?
Yeah.
You're using
To
that
the
JSON.
Angular services, I just passed that all the way back.
Yeah.
So that what I have in my views, so I didn't need to change a single line of code in my views when I switched from the array to the Mongo because the properties I'm accessing are the same properties in the model as before. But technically, I'm working with a mongoose model. You see what I mean?
Yeah. Right. So to address that, typically you have an additional layer here that we skipped over. That you might have a model layer here, right? Right. Because the representation of the data, right, of how it's stored, typically this representation might be very hierarchical, right? Might have different layers, object within object within objects, because it was originally designed to be, efficient at storage and retrieval. Yes. And so it's been very normalized, right, to be able to provide this performance, right? But from the user's point of view, that they're looking at one page at a time, one product at a time, all this hierarchy is really irrelevant to them, right? They only just want to see a very 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 small sliver of data of whatever they're looking at. So they're looking to denormalize the data, right? They want to see something that's flat, right? You might have a layer in between here that will convert the data that's coming from the database and convert it into a data set that is consumable by the lower layers, right? That want to look at it in an abstract form, right? Or might split it, right? So, for instance, in the database, you might consider an order as a single object, right? But from a user's point of view, you might want to split that into 3 or 4 different pages, right? Because you don't want to overwhelm the user, right? And so you might just display subsets of that data model, right, at different times at different pages at different controllers, right? And they'd be editing just snippets of a larger object, right? So it depends, right? So you have an object of how it's being stored, right, and then an object of how it's being displayed, right? So we don't have that layer, but oftentimes you have that conversion between these two representations. Okay, and then you can swap out the database. It would be obviously you need the conversion, right? The conversion layer. Excellent. Yeah, for us, the data model that is being stored is the same data model that we're consuming at the front end. Yes. Right. So let's actually store this. Let's load an actor model, and that actor model we're going to load it using require, and this will be. Let's see. We're going to go up down to the model, and then go into actor.model.server.js. Okay. And that's going to live here in models. Models. Okay, so let's call this models. And this will be a new JavaScript, and this will be actor.model.server.js. Okay? And in here is where we're going to do our connection to the underlying mongoose, right? So here module exports, and this will be function. We're going to load mongoose here. Require mongoose, and let's create the schema. Actually, no. Let's load the schema separately. Right? Remember, we said that it's better to have a separate schema in a separate file. So let's. This will be actor schema. And this will require it from dot actor dot schema.server.js, and implement it right here. So this will be actor.schema.server.js, and this will be module.exports function. And this will be var mongoose, require mongoose. And then here we have the var actor schema equal will be mongoose.schema. And for now, we'll just have name. Okay, we can make it more complex a little later. We're also going to select the collection to store this in. Will be in lectures Wednesday .mongo.movies. Okay, dot actor. There we go. All right, that's where we're going to store it, and we're going to return that schema, the actor schema. I'm sorry. It's not going to pluralize it because I'm giving it the name.
Why not? But we didn't call it.
Oh, here I said lectures-Wednesday. It doesn't really matter. We're not going to use this, right? It's whatever. It's actually going to store it in that collection. We're going to give it a name and a more abstract name in the model. So now that we have the schema, let's create the model. Var actor model will be mongoose dot model, and the name of the model. So I'll call it lectures Wednesday Mongo movies actor. Okay, and this will use the actor schema. I'm only giving it this name because I'm going to have to do this on Friday again. And I don't want to collide with this name of a model, right? So, and these have to be unique. You know, these model names need to be unique for the Mongoose instance that you're using. So anyway, so my API right now, the API for this is that we want to be able to create at least. So create movie, and to do that, we're going to say create movie. I mean not movie, sorry, actor. Actor. And we're going to return the API, and we're going to implement the create actor down here, right? And we're going to create it by saying that we're going to say actor model dot create the actor, okay? And if I remember right, we were using this syntax right here: return actor model dot create. Yes. And we saw a problem here because it was using deprecated promises. Yes?
In the MongoDB, you told that plural is whatever you can collection. So in case you don't specify the collection name,
Yeah.
and it's pluralized in the database,
Yeah.
and it's singular over here, will it still communicate?
Yeah. No. It uses the the name that we give it here, right? And it maps it to a normalized name, right? Which is all lowercase, right? With a pluralized, it's best case on how to pluralize. If it doesn't know how to pluralize, it'll just add an S at the end, right? It has a dictionary, it looks it up.
Still communicate, right?
Yeah, no, it uses this name, right? It uses that name by default, right? So whatever name you put it here, if you have not overwritten it, it'll use this name, pluralized, right? All lowercase, right? So it always maps to the same thing, right? So yes, it'll find it. For last week we used this syntax over here, right? And we saw that it was giving us some errors, right? So let's see the error before we try to fix it. Let's see. Let's restart this, and let's refresh this, and let's see if we get any errors. So it received it. It doesn't seem like it actually did anything. Did the service call this? Let's see, the service. Here's the service. Okay, all right, the service is not using our model. So let's do actor model dot create actor, and we're going to pass it the body. And this is supposed to return a promise, right? What that receives the actor object, and we're going to respond. I'm going to respond with a 200 saying, yes, it was successful. So let's refresh and let's try this again. Okay, so it looks like it worked. We can check to see if it's there. We can go into Mongo show DBs, and I think we're using the test still. So use test. Show collections, and there it is. So lectures, Wednesday, Mongo, movies, actor, right? So we can say db.lectures, really? db lectures, Mongo, movies, actor, find. I don't think it likes the dashes. Oh, maybe it doesn't like the dashes. Let me see. Yeah, it doesn't like the dashes. All right, so but anyway, it worked, right? It stored it in there. But notice that it has this error. See this error? Right? It's complaining that I'm using a deprecated promise library. Okay, it's going to be deprecated. So let's use the another library. You can use any number of promise libraries. One of the ones that it's suggested is the Q library, right? So let's use the Q library, let's go into the model, right? So instead of using the default promises, let's use Q. It's a library that it's installed already. It's configured. You should have it already installed in your package JSON. It's this one right here, Q. All right. You should have it. If not, you can install it by saying npm install Q -- safe. It'll install it and copy it into your package JSON. All right. And the following is the syntax. So let's start using it here. Let's go here. So instead of using this here like this, what we're going to do is use the following. We're going to require Q, the library. So here's Q. Require Q. Now that we have Q, we're going to explicitly return these promises ourselves. We're going to create them ourselves, right? So we're going to create a deferred promise here from the Q library. So we're going to say defer, right? And yes.
So even though Mongoose says that its promise library is deprecated,
Yep.
if you go to the docs, it says that as of Mongoose 4.0, it's actually using like query and everything else to return the promise.
Yeah.
And so, is that the promise that is now like deprecated that they're saying
Yeah.
was immediately introduced? Like, because so I didn't do this for example. I didn't use.
Are you using the latest one?
I'm just using the latest Mongo.
Okay. Which?
Latest Mongoose and the latest Mongo, and I'm treating all the query returns as promises, and all that works, but I'm still getting the message that's deprecated. That's I guess what
Yeah. No, it's I think in the same document they say that they suggest to use Q and some other Bluebird. Yeah, to use those two. And Bluebird is one of the Q and Bluebird are very, very common. Q is also very used a lot in the client side as well.
Right.
To use those.
Okay. I guess because using promises works. Like treating these like doing a .then and everything works.
Yeah, it does that. Yeah, it has a method and it treats them as a promise, right? It calls it as a callback later on. And yeah, it's inconsistent, right? It does say that it returns a promise, but then you get all these errors. But in many different places says that to use Q instead, use these promises. So let me show you how to use it. So we're creating this deferred, and now instead of this returning over here, right? We're going to return deferred the actual promise object. So this promise object is the actual object that has the then, right? The then function, right? So that this the service, this then is on this object that I'm returning here explicitly. This object over here, right? And so this create has two syntaxes, right? The syntax which is giving us this headache, right, of returning over here, right? Instead, we're going to use this other syntax, which is an asynchronous syntax that says execute this create, right? And then I'm going to pass you a callback function. This callback function is going to asynchronously be called at some point later on, right? When the server comes back, when the database server comes back, and it's going to give us two parameters. One is if there was an error, right? And the other one is the actual return from this function, right? So in this case, it would be a document, right? Which would be the actual actor that was inserted in the database, right? And here's where we have a chance to say, hey, anybody who's waiting on this then to come back, right? I'm going to now say that the promise has been fulfilled, right? Go ahead. I'm going to call back. I'm going to do a callback. I'm going to call all those functions that you guys have registered with me. I'm going to call them now, right? And let me spell this. And to do that, we can say defer.resolve. So resolve will invoke all those functions that were registered with us in the then. So this function right here will be invoked when I resolve the promise. Make sense? Right? Or if there was an error, I want to abort and say, no, sorry, I know I promised, right? But I was not able to fulfill the promise. I'm sorry, right? So we could check to see if there was an error. If there was an error, we can say deferred dot abort, okay? Or else we can resolve, right? Those are the only two ways that we can get at it here, all right? And on this case, right, if we resolve, this function will be invoked, this one right here, okay? If not, then this other function is going to be invoked with an error. Notice that this then takes two functions, right? One of the functions is the success function, and the other function is the failure function, right? One of them will be invoked. The first one, the success function, will be invoked if the promise is resolved. The other function will be invoked if the promise is aborted. Okay, so if I call abort, then this function will be invoked, right? If I call resolve, then the first function will be invoked. Okay, so in this one we can respond with a status 500 and send back the error. Okay, all right. Let's try this again. So let's restart, and let's look at the let's sniff the network. So if we send here, let's say plus, notice it comes back to 200 saying OK. Right? So presumably we made it into the database. Right? Okay, so what we should do is retrieve the information so we can display it. So let's go back to the controller. Right? Actually, let me stop this movie here and let's start a new one.